Aloha, friends, and welcome back to Maui. We have a really great guest today. I am so honored to have her on. She is a beautiful human inside and out. And I'm just so grateful because it's really hard to step outside of this carnivore norm. People often say we're making it too complicated, when in reality, we're just trying to speak the truth because we do work with thousands of people every month. And we just got done with a challenge where we do lower the fat. But obviously, Linda, welcome to the channel. We're going to talk so much about carnivore and all the things. But we're so glad to have you today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you guys. I appreciate you wanting to have me on. And I am just like so pleased that I'll be able to speak to so many people. Your channel's huge.
No, I've been listening to all your interviews and just being like, Craig, we need to have her on. She's talking about us, helping her. And I just thank you for those shout outs too. But like, maybe we should step back and be like, why? So you've been carnivore for 7 years now?
It's 9 years today.
Awesome.
Wow.
9 years.
Yeah, it's 9 years today. I mean, some people probably want to pull my carnivore card because I've been eating tomato and onion and
carnivore police.
The carnivore police.
But yeah, it's been 9 years. It's been a long time. And absolutely, you guys have definitely taught me so much along the way. And I appreciate that like you wouldn't believe, because you guys have shared some real game-changing information for me specifically.
Well, let's start with why did you start carnivore?
Yeah, what was your reason for
what's your why
jumping into carnivore?
I have very superficial reasons, and a lot of people have deeper reasons in this, but I was like, I just had some baby weight to lose. I was like, I've got some baby weight to lose. And I was like looking into keto because when I was younger, like right after college, I started Atkins. I'm probably dating myself, but after college, I started Atkins, and I just found that 2-week induction period to be like my sweet spot. Like I never needed to get out of that 2-week induction. And so I was happy there, and I knew that I could sort of trim down by doing that. I had 2 kids, and I was like sort of ready to actually at that point, I think I had had 2 kids. I was ready to get back into like.
I thought you were like 17. I mean,
you're so
like,
sweet.
You look like you're 20.
I'm pretty sure I'm older than both of you guys. We'll see. We'll discuss that after. But I'm not giving that up right now. So I started looking back into keto, and then at the time, there was like a Facebook post that led me to zeroing in on health, that very popular Facebook group. This was back in 2015. It was a long time ago. So, it wasn't like carnivore was everywhere. This was like pre-Rogan, pre-Baker, it was like a smaller thing. And so when people talk about like carnivore OGs, like that's who I was learning from, was like the OGs, it was like the Andersons and Kelly and Lisa Wiedemann and those guys.
Amber O'Hearn was
Amber O'Hearn.
She was the pioneer for me.
Yeah. I mean, these are like the carnivore OGs, right? Like Charles Washington and whatever. And so I got into carnivore thinking, well, I want to, look great. I want to have beautiful legs like Charlene Anderson. Like, sure. Like, let's see what happens. And, I thought I'd do it for a month, and I just never stopped doing it. I had some, times when I would do like a holiday meal where I was like, let me just throw in a holiday meal. And I would go full out on my like traditional, standard American holiday meal. And I would just feel terrible. And I just knew, there's no going back anymore. I'm done with, the regular American food. We're going to stick with carnivore.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Charlene Anderson is someone who has been carnivore 25 years now or something. I mean, it's been
real OG.
Yeah. And she started doing it because of her chronic Lyme disease pain. And so that was my initial why too for getting the carnivore. So just a little side note.
Well, I mean, it's incredible because it's healing on so many levels. And I joke and I say that my why is superficial. And there is this large population of people who go into carnivore because they've like hit rock bottom and there's nowhere else to go. But I feel like there's this underrepresented group of people who have other reasons to do carnivore. And like, we shouldn't forget about those people too, because it allows some flexibility in how you do carnivore. And so everyone's reason is not the same. Like you had a different reason than I have a different reason. And then there's like, the food addiction reason to do it. So there's a lot of different reasons why people come to it. And I think going forward with that one size fits all approach, which we can talk about, isn't great for everybody.
Exactly. I mean, I love that because in our carnivore book here, that's where we started the book was what is your why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Because it changes how you might potentially do it.
His why is totally than mine.
Yeah. And so my why was this initially Lyme, SIRS, autoimmune. So I had to go really strict at first, and that's what we called our level 1, where it's just like beef and salt. And then you try to work back, see where your tolerance level is, see what you can handle. For someone like you, it's just general health and whatnot. You want to add some spices, add some spices. If you want to have a little slice of tomato, have a little slice of tomato. But,
right. Yeah. But what I found with the carnivore, when I did that first month, I found that I was healing things that I thought were just normal parts of life. Mm-hmm. And now I'm realizing I actually ended up having more whys. Like I have now more whys to continue than I did to start because, to run through the list of conditions that have been helped. Like I used to get daily migraines. I had terrible anxiety, depression, interstitial cystitis, like irregular cycles. My period would go missing. And the carnivore helped in so many ways that I was like, the bloating, I will never miss. I'm just fiber and I are not friends. We're not ever getting back together. Like we're broken up.
Yeah. There's way better prebiotics than fiber will ever be. And everybody asks, well, don't you need fiber to poo? I'm just telling all the people that are watching right now, think about newborn babies. Newborn babies, they poo all the time and they don't eat any fiber.
They do quite well.
They do. But I really, like you were saying, there's different ways to do carnivore, and we are definitely the underdogs of the whole thing because like I've spoken at KetoCon, which is now Hack Your Health, since the beginning, right? Since the beginning. And now there's like a carnivore panel and we've never been invited to be on it. And it's not even the leaders that do it. It's one of the carnivores that we all know. We will never be invited. Yeah. Why? Because we say calories matter.
Yeah.
And we say that you can't just eat all the fat. You can't just put butter on the ribeye. And that's what I was trying to preach when I was on that reverse TV show, the TV show in Costa Rica that was for carnivore. I was the only one and I got slammed all the time. Like I left that place crying, but I just stood my ground because I'm the one that's working with people all the time.
Right.
What's funny about that is at that same conference, I gave my a case for carnivore presentation 7 years ago. So that was before, like you said, Sean or a lot of these people were even into this space.
Right.
Everybody on that panel was not into carnivore pretty much. But it's just, I think it's because all the rest of them kind of toe that same line of eat all the fattiest cuts, no matter what your goals are, and that kind of one size fits all approach.
It's very hard when in any sort of field, like when you're talking about any topic, when the loudest people are all agreeing, it's very hard to counter that. And I feel terrible that was your experience in Costa Rica.
Oh no, it was awful. It was a terrible memory.
I mean, it's just that fun sort of have everybody against you.
It's not like they were like bullies, but nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. But I don't know. I'm just going to keep on keeping on because the people that need to find us, they usually do.
And let's transition into that and what you're talking. And I want to also shout out to all the health improvements that you can see with this lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We see it all the time. We see it, even myself. If I get a little too much plant back into my diet, my pain will flare up and it'll be really bad. So I have to stick pretty strict. But here's the thing, Michelle here is saying, I've gained so much weight on carnivore, but I feel better, sleep better, and breathe better. Mm-hmm. Applaud all those improvements. And it's a great job. You can also get all those improvements and lose weight.
And it's not all about weight either. We'll just put that way. But when you do have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, you need to shrink the fat cells and gain and retain muscle. And the way to do that is not to eat sticks of butter.
Yeah. And so what we're trying to point out here is not only can you lose weight while getting all that healing by not overdoing the fat, you can also improve healing, because part of healing for a lot of people, especially if insulin resistant,
Your stuff
is lowering your fat
'Cause the
in
stuff-
your body.
the fat cells are
Losing
stuffed.
fat, losing weight does help improve, overall health as well. So that can be part of the healing process. So why don't you walk us through kind of what your journey was through carnivore?
Maybe what you were eating then too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I started, I was like, just trying to sort of follow along with the standard advice of eat however much meat you want, eat the fatty meat. And I understood that the Andersons only ate ribeyes. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to have ribeyes as much as possible. And so I was eating a lot of fatty meat and things were going really well. And like you said, I was getting all those health improvements. I mean, I think I lost maybe like 5 pounds or something. And truth be told, I didn't have a huge amount of weight to lose. So the few pounds that I lost, it was great. But what was really great were the health improvements. And at some point along the lines, like when that started in 2015, and I realized a few years later, like I wasn't getting results like people say. I wasn't getting that like, oh, if you just lower insulin by cutting carbohydrates, you will become like a supermodel. Like you won't store fat. Like it's impossible without high insulin, I wasn't getting that. And then, come to realize, oh, I've got lipedema. Like this is why no matter how much I reduced my calories, no matter how much I fasted, I still was holding a lot of weight in my legs. And I was like, I sort of was like, well, this isn't going to work for me, but I'm going to keep up with carnivore, do the best I can. I was seeing reduced inflammation, but I realized like, I'm not getting results like other people. When I started to listen to you guys seriously, and I heard you, Craig, say that when you eat fat, you don't just burn it directly. You can't just work that off. That fat has to get absorbed. And then it gets released. Like it has to go through the process. It's not just going to go through the tunnel.
Yeah.
I realized this is where I was, for me, doing carnivore wrong, because getting in that much fat and having that much fat be stored in a system that is not designed to release that fat, which is like what happens with lipedema, got me in a spot where it was impossible for me to lose any of the weight in the legs. I would get completely sucked out on top where, every bone was showing, the ribs were showing, my face was gone, and people were worried about me. Like, Linda, you're losing so much weight, this carnivore thing, the fasting thing, but my legs wouldn't budge and the pain was still there. There's all sorts of symptoms that go on with lipedema. There's bruising and pain and joint issues and, mobility issues. And just, it's so frustrating because it doesn't fit the idea of like, calories in, calories out. You just have to burn more calories. It's like, I was completely like skeletal on top, but very large in the legs. The first DEXA I got showed that I was 40% fat in the legs, wow. which is insane because it didn't look that much different. I mean, you can only see my top, but I didn't look very different from this on top. Yeah. But it was just you hold a lot of weight in your legs when you've got lipedema. And so, it's not like, sorry me, it's more just like, okay, well, we're going to tweak some things and we're going to try and limit the fat. And I did. And I'm telling you guys, like, I just want to thank you guys for, well, like, I feel like I should have known better, putting that much energy into the system, in a system that doesn't want to release that energy. I should have known better. And at this point now, I see things trending in such a better direction where, I don't know if you saw, yes, you did see this morning, I did post some DEXA pictures and showed the results. Like, I'm down to, never in my life have I been below 30% body fat. Mm-hmm. And I'm down now to solidly 27% body fat. The DEXA I had in December showed 28% body fat. And then one just a few weeks ago was 27. So I'm really there. It's not like a temporary thing where I just fasted my way to 27 and I'm going to bounce back up. I can feel these shifts in my body composition. My muscle mass is increasing, and that fat is going. And, they say it's impossible without surgery to lose lipedema fat.
Yeah.
And I hope that I can prove them wrong. Once I found out that I had lipedema, I said, well, I think I'm the only carnivore who's like pretty strict carnivore. There are definitely some people that are doing keto that have lipedema, but I said, well, let's do it carnivore. I'm going to be the one. And when it wasn't working out for me, I was kind of disappointed, but now I'm like, wait, now if I'm like high protein carnivore, so I've still got hope, and things are really moving in a great direction, that I've got this really slow, steady progress in a great direction. The body recomposition is just, it's all sort of looking great.
Awesome.
I'm really happy. So I don't know if that answered your question. This is sort of an overview progression.
A couple things I want to point out. So many people, that fat you eat. First of all, if it's going right through you, going out the colon, you're gonna know it. You're gonna be living on that toilet. Like it's not gonna be fun for you. So the rest is in your blood, and if you could test your blood plasma and look at the triglycerides, right? Nobody wants sky high triglycerides.
Judy Cho does.
Yep.
That's why she changed her mind.
So if you tested your blood and tested the triglycerides after you ate that fatty meal, right? You're gonna be really high triglycerides because all that fat's flooding into the bloodstream. Right? But when you're in a fasted state, your triglycerides are real low, right? So where'd all that fat go? Right? It didn't suddenly, burn 1,000 calories of fat just by sitting around. Like it had to go somewhere. Where'd it go? It went into your fat cells. The vast majority of that fat you ate went into the fat cells.
But this is why I loved Judy Cho, because she's a great carnivore, doctor, and she's in a space where she's actually testing people and finding out, their numbers are getting worse. Their blood sugars are getting worse.
Growing up for some of these people.
Not just triglycerides, but blood sugars, and like everything's getting worse when you're just over filling your gas tank. But someone made a comment that we're all different. Yes, we are all different. However, biology is the same.
When it comes to how you process fat, carbohydrate, and protein, we're all largely the same when it comes to those.
Our cecums look the same. Our colons have the same shape. Like it's all
process things similarly across the board.
Right. Our hormones are different, things like that. But I just wanted to point that out.
But so anyway, but what you're saying, it really reflects what our focus has always been, which is body composition. And I think that is what also is helping you so much is when you increase muscle mass. So it's, weight loss is not just about the scale going down. It's about losing body fat while maintaining or gaining muscle. That puts you in such a better metabolic state. It increases your BMR. So you're burning more calories all day long because of the added muscle. All of these things that you're talking about put you in the right direction for body composition. And I think that is also helping the lipedema a lot too.
And thank you, Bethany, for chiming in, because we do have hundreds of testimonies about lipedema. Not necessarily were they carnivore, but we worked with them with keto, and cutting out dairy was huge, but also focusing on protein, lowering the fat is definitely a huge game changer.
So I'm going to throw this up, Linda, and we'll just talk and show what happened with your body composition when you switched from the higher fat to more of a prioritized protein.
Let me talk about the timeline here.
So I'll tell you, there's one DEXA I had before this set, which was on a different machine, which is why it's not in this set. And that was the original DEXA, which I was very upset with. And it was where I was at 36% body fat at that time. But what you're seeing on this screen here, the first DEXA at 7, that's July of 21, I had switched to a higher protein approach, and I got my body fat down to 31%. And I was like pretty pleased with that. I was like, we're going in the right direction. And you know what I did? Like a dope, I sort of relaxed back and fell back into like standard carnivore. At that time, like before the next DEXA, which is the second picture here in March of 23, I was like, all the voices were getting into my head. All the noise was getting into my head that like, no, Linda, no, you're doing this wrong. Like you've got to stop with the high protein. You've got to get back to traditional keto macros. which is like 70-30. And I was like, okay. And things then went the wrong way. And so you can see here, I ended up gaining body fat. I ended up losing muscle. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And so then things started to improve. And so going back to the next 3 pictures, you can see that when I switched back to doing what I knew worked well for me, things started to improve again. So we went back to 31% body fat and then got down to 28, and then 27 is where I am now.
Look at those little hips, jeepers.
Oh, please. Never in my life. Let me tell you what, I was looking at a dance video of me, and, I ballroom dance, right? And I was watching a video of me from a few months ago in a dress that I wore last month. And I was like, wow, like, not for nothing, my butt was kind of big in that dress. And I was like, wow, this time when I wore the dress, it wasn't like I was bursting the dress. The dress wasn't designed for me. It was designed for someone else. And when I wore it, it was like obvious that it was a little too tight in the hips for me. But when I wore it this time, it was just comfortable. It was great. And I was just so happy in it. So yeah, things are getting back into proportion. I hope it continues this way.
Were you testing your blood sugar, and that's why you were starting to listen to the noise again? Because that's something that we see is that people, well, first of all, they don't lower the fat; they just increase the protein, and their blood sugars go real high.
If they have protein here, fat here, and then they just increase protein, don't lower the fat at all, then it gets worse.
Then they say it didn't work for them. It's like, well, you got to lower the fat then, but still, people worry when mTOR, too much blood, all the noise.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was probably doing some of that. I was probably testing ketones. Some of it is like you try and do these things for content. Like as a creator, you want to show stuff, and then then you sort of get distracted by unimportant information that isn't going to help you necessarily. So I was like under the impression, like you said, listening to the noise, that like 0.2 on my ketone meter is not good enough. Like we got to get that up. I mean, the best way to get that up is to eat a stick of butter. Sure. I'll get that up, exactly. But it's not helpful for me. And so I really just had to stop listening to that. Well, even something like keto cycling even is not good for me, because getting to that level of ketosis with additional fat just puts me in a dangerous spot where I have to be really vigilant about the amount of energy that I take in, because I tend to store it.
Definitely. And, that's the thing, chasing the results, why that's so important, versus any ketone number, blood sugar number, that little bit, my blood sugar. We get people all the time that they start wearing CGMs and they're like, oh my gosh, I worked out. I had a HIIT workout and my blood glucose went to 190. Should I stop working out?
We literally get those questions. Like, is exercise bad?
It's like, the ideal is not a flat line glucose. That's not the ideal state. There's going to be fluctuation when you eat, when you exercise, when you do sauna, cold therapy. All these things are going to move your blood sugar.
And the lowest blood sugar will be when you drink tequila. I mean, should we all just like sit around on our butts and watch Netflix and drink? I mean, no, we shouldn't. But it's just something that we see often. And, it's just interesting how, and the longer you are keto or, carnivore keto, your ketones will go lower. And I really want people to understand that your body becomes very efficient. And so your ketone numbers will read lower, especially I run in the morning on an empty stomach in a fasted state. And so my ketones are really low. But do I think that it's a bad thing? No, I don't. I'm still in ketosis. But people think that there's this magic number for fat loss, and there's really not.
Yeah.
In fact, like higher ketones just means that you ate a lot of fat. It doesn't mean that you're burning fat.
Right. This is such a missed point. It really is it's a really missed point in the high fat cohort, where people are just like, I got to get that number high. That's how I'm going to be healthy. And it misses so much.
Yeah. The only people I care about their ketones being higher is when I just worked with a 20-year-old girl. She has seizures. Someone with maybe Alzheimer's, I would want that to be
Right.
higher. But really, the majority of people, their ketones, no, as long as they're
Right.
in ketones. It's all
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say is, on our blog, we have this success stories page with all of these examples of healing, as well as, women that have lost 250 pounds and all these amazing results. Not one of those people were told to look at their ketones.
No.
And so you can achieve all these things no matter what the ketone levels are if you just work towards body composition and the right macros.
Well, since you brought that up, I'm going to say this too. People are like, oh, you guys make it too complicated. I just heard these very influential people in the community say, oh, some people are trying to make it way too complicated so they can make a buck. First of all, we have 5 free Facebook groups that Twyla and Felicia, who've lost like over 270 pounds, each of them, they just were on our free groups and we help them for free there. We're not trying to
never
do that.
paid us $1.
We want people to find success. We're not.
Right, absolutely. You guys give so much information for free. I mean, all I've bought from you guys, honestly, I've just bought a couple of your books. I don't support you in the way that I should.
No, that's not why we're in
I'm
this.
kidding. I'm joking. But
This is
but
why
I'm
we-
just trying to say, yes, you absolutely get so much good free information, life-changing stuff for free.
And we are not giving this advice because we want you to buy something. It's
No,
because we
we-
know it works and we
want you
know
to be
how much it can
successful.
help.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
man,
why we love having you
I
on
know
and showing
people
those
like
examples.
check out when I talk to them about what coffee does. Like they do not want to follow me when I tell them what coffee does, but it's the truth. I was addicted to coffee. Like I worked at a coffee shop since I was 15, but knowing what I know, what it does to our blood sugar, overall health, our gastric stomach, like it's not worth it. And I think people should at least know the truth. But this is why we talk about protein versus fat, and we're not saying no fat. And I want everybody watching to understand that we're not saying no fat. We're saying that putting butter on the ribeye has enough fat in it by
there's
itself.
plenty of fat by itself.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And so on that note, I just want to touch on this before it gets too far back. Somebody's asking about doing protein sparing days and just doing those all the time. No, we don't recommend that. Eating really low calorie like that every single day, day after day. We typically recommend maybe 1 to 3 days a week of protein sparing. Again, you don't want the metabolism slowing down or any of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a tool. Think of it this way. You wouldn't do a water fast every single day for days after days and months, eat nothing for months. So use it as a tool in place of something like a water fast where you might do it for 2 days or 3 days. So I just wanted to touch on that, make sure they understand.
Something else that you mentioned on another podcast I was listening to was about testosterone. And I wanted to touch on that because a lot of carnivore doctors will say, if you eat all, the fatty meats, your hormones will be normal. But that's just like we age, like it's going to happen. And carnivore harder is not the answer in these situations. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. Well, I had my hormones checked after what was, 7 years of carnivore. And my testosterone was absolutely on the floor, like indetectable. The functional med doctor I was working with, she's like, how long has it been like this? Because when it's at nothing like that, she said, this is not like new. So how long have you had you discuss like the symptoms of low testosterone. And she's like, well, how long have you been living like this and why? And I said, I just thought this was my personality. Like, I don't know. I just live this way. But it's true. Things just aren't fixed with sticks of butter and ribeye. Aging is going to happen. And I will never understand. Like, I don't understand. And maybe somebody can educate me, but how a stick of butter fixes your hormones, I will never understand because it's just so much more complicated than that. And I'm smart enough to know that it's over my head. And that,
Well, here's the thing.
Cholesterol makes healthy hormones.
Cholesterol makes all your sex hormones,
Yeah.
right? But here's the thing. Your body, the fat on the meat, the saturated fat, largely looks the same as the saturated fat stored on your body. Like if you have extra body fat around, your body can use that just like it can use the dietary fat. You don't need all this in the diet. your body has lots of fat store. It's there. It's on the tank. It's in the storage tank.
It's usable.
Yeah, usable. You
Yeah.
can, it's not like it's locked away in your fat
But,
cells
like,
to never be touched again.
I want to point out, like, lobster has a lot of cholesterol,
No,
but it's very
It's
low in fat.
leaner.
It's leaner. I don't know. It's just people think that it's a fix for everything, and
Right.
I mean, it's going to make things way better, but we do age. Things do happen, and I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel so much better with the replacement. So getting that testosterone in helps so much with getting that body recomposition, because it was so hard for me to gain muscle. All the training that I do and all the dancing that I do, I was still like, when I talked to the guy who does my DEXA, he was like, Linda, you're really not overweight. And yeah, you're holding a lot of that fat in your legs, but your legs are only 40% fat because you're so under muscled. Like you need more muscle, and you've got to work towards that. And I'm working towards it, and I'm working towards it. And I'm just not, I just was not growing any muscle. The HRT has absolutely helped me in that. And my muscle mass has increased considerably, thankfully. And then that helps with body composition. It helps get your body fat percentage down so that number looks nicer. But that number can look nicer, not just because fat's going down, but because muscle's going up. And at the end of the day, having that skeletal muscle is what's going to keep us young, keep us safe, keep us from falling down. And that's the beginning of the end for everybody.
Oh, exactly. And we really need to get into a little more of the health aspects of the protein side, where, so much is probably on the fat side, but let's talk about protein. I mean, the muscle mass, and what's one of the biggest causes of death for elderly people? It's falling, right? And having that strength and mobility, as well as the strength of the bones. And
bones are mineralized protein.
Basically, it's a matrix of protein filled in with calcium, right? And so getting enough protein is so essential for bone health too. And that is so important as we age. And, as Dr. Lehman in our interview discussed, as you get older, you need even more leucine just to start the process of building muscle, that muscle protein synthesis. And so you need to even increase your protein as you age. So, all those factors point to protein. And guess what? If you put a plate of fat and a plate of pure protein, animal protein in front of you, which one has more vitamins and minerals? The fat is largely empty calories. In this respect of
it's energy.
Not empty calories, but it's pure energy. It's good energy. You need it. But if you're talking about healing, you want vitamins and minerals to help your body heal, right? And that's largely in the protein as well. So for me, prioritizing protein is the way that you get healthy and help promote all those healthful aspects.
I was running on the beach one morning, and I usually run before the sun is even coming up. It's pretty dark out. And this woman came up to me. She's like, "Oh my gosh, are you Maria Emmerich?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "You helped me so much." And she looked super healthy. And she said, "I had osteopenia really, really bad." She's like, "But I was doing all of this extended fasting because I thought that was so good for my health." And she wanted to lose weight. She said she was much overweight in the past. And she said, "But then I found you. I started doing protein sparing, but like higher protein. Her bone mass is now great, and she's super lean, and she's, she had way more energy now that she was actually, consuming, proper energy for what she wanted to accomplish." But people don't realize those extended fasts, there's no nutrients to help build your body's that's always turning over. Like bones are always in osteoclast or osteoblast. It's like building and unbuilding. So
that's right. And I used to do some pretty long fasts, and I won't do them anymore. I'm done. It's been years. I'm just completely over it. I don't see the point in doing any kind of water fasting at all. And I'll be honest with you, protein sparing modified fasting isn't even my bag, because I just love eating. If I'm going to be eating, I need to just be eating sort of more. So even protein sparing modified fasting with those low calorie days, they're not for me. Some people, really do so well with that. But like to say you have to do the fast, like, no, you don't do the fast. Like the best way to do the fast is the way that you guys do it, the protein sparing fast. Absolutely. But
But we
You
don't
don't-
require people to do
Well,
that. either.
Yeah, and you don't require it. It's not like you're pushing anybody to do
We're saying
it.
do that instead of a water fast.
Yeah, if you want to do something like that. But
Right.
here's the thing too, and I want to point out to everybody out there, and I still get this. I don't understand why people don't understand that your macros, what you're eating, is going to change based on your goals. People think we do protein sparing because we promote protein sparing. We don't have to lose weight. Neither of us has done a protein sparing day for ever. Like, we're in maintenance.
No.
Right.
It's a different diet based on your goals.
Well, if anything, I should gain weight according to everybody in the community, but I feel great. I run, I lift weights, like I have energy. I'm the Energizer bunny of the family.
Gaining muscle, which is important.
Yeah, but like, it's just, I know how I could like gain a bunch of fat, but do I want to? I feel sluggish when I do that. So, I mean, I'm going to focus on building muscle, if anything, but it is sad, Amy, that the mainstream media does say to decrease protein with age. It's the absolute opposite.
Yeah, that is sad. Whenever I hear about somebody restricting protein, I just don't get why you'd want to do that. There's, or someone saying, well, I don't want to get bulky. Like, you know how much work it takes to get bulky? It's not going to accidentally happen.
Yeah. And, the thing is too about it is when you start restricting protein and doing the really high fat, you don't see the difference on in the scale, on the mirror in a week, a month. It takes a lot of time. And so, especially you see these very muscular men, like I know one, I don't want to call him up, but he's doing these experiments of like overeating and eating a lot of calories. And he's like 200 pounds and ripped, and he works out like crazy.
I never had a weight problem.
Guess what? In 4 weeks of eating extra calories, from like 4,000 calories it was, you're not going to notice a difference.
Right.
When you're that muscular, when you're that active. If I did that, I guarantee you I'm putting on 10 pounds.
We're little people.
Same.
We're like 5 feet.
Well, but also I'm not very active because of my ankylosing spondylitis. I have a lot of pain. So even just down the beach and back, it has a lot of pain.
But he even sees it. If you do a like higher fat, when we get here, we usually do more fish and leaner things,
cuts. And
he loses 5-10 pounds.
Yeah. And back home, I eat more like bunless burgers and higher fat things. Maybe put on a little weight. All the time eating carnivore, all the time, zero carb. So, the idea that if you get to a certain point of fat and protein, that it's impossible to gain weight is just wrong. And people, Sean Baker recently put on body fat because he upped his, went to like ketogenic levels, and he put on body fat, and then he lowered his fat to get leaned out again. You can do it. You can gain weight.
Absolutely. We saw this a lot, right? Last year, was it about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, when eating high fat came way back into favor, and everybody was like, I don't know how this happened. I gained 30 pounds. I gained 40 pounds. Doing carnivore, and I haven't, and they say, well, I haven't cheated. I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't gone off carnivore. How did this happen? It's like,
but let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So keeping insulin low and gaining fat, like, hello, have you heard of Ozempic? Like, let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, so there's a lot of ideas too around, as long as your insulin's low, you won't gain fat or store fat. But, some of this is conflating what happens in a petri dish or a type 1 diabetic, where you have to introduce insulin to make the fat cells take up fat. Yeah, if you go from zero insulin, no fat cells are going to take up the fat. And you put insulin in, they're going to take up the fat. But that's going from nothing to something. Nobody outside of a type 1 diabetic walking around right now has nothing for insulin. Okay. It might be low, 2, 3, something like that. But even at those basal fasted levels of insulin of 2, that's sufficient for your fat cells to take up fat. You don't need to have, and the contrary of that, if we see people all the time that are very obese, close to their fat threshold, and they have a fasting insulin of 30. So their insulin's at 30 all day long. Okay, they can still lose weight even when it's at 30, and they lose it really fast in the beginning. And guess what? If everybody understands that if you lower insulin, or that your body lowers insulin as you lose body fat, right? As you lose body fat, your fasting insulin will come down.
Because that net doesn't have to be so engorged.
It's holding back less energy. But here's the thing: if it was all about lowering insulin to make fat burning easier, shouldn't the first 20 pounds of weight loss be really hard? And then as insulin comes down, the next 20 pounds be even easier.
Right.
And the next 20 pounds be even easier.
It gets harder.
Because insulin's coming down. No,
Right.
it's the opposite. It
gets
becomes
harder
because what's happening as you lose the fat from the fat cells become more insulin sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So they're easier to take up fat. And so it's the opposite, actually. So I just, sorry for the sidetrack and rant on that, but see it so much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can absolutely gain weight eating too much energy, right? And if it's carbohydrate energy or if it's fat energy. And so I think that, people need to understand that. And that's not being like a calories in, calories out, advocate. Like, it's just being real. Like if you store that energy before you burn that energy.
Right. And, we don't make people that we work with count calories. We do it for them basically. But here's the thing, protein is great for building parts of your body, your muscles, your beautiful hair, your skin, your bones, right? But it's not a great energy source. So if you're a carnivore, carbohydrates are off the table. Sure, there's like a carb in eggs and scallops, things like that, liver, but carbohydrates are not your energy source. Fat is. So that's where there becomes a balance. However, you do not need copious amounts of fat. Most people are not running marathons. Most people are, maybe taking a walk on the beach at most. That level of fat is quite low for enough energy.
The required needs.
If you have a lot of body fat, you could use that for energy. It's only when you become very lean that you need external amounts of, sources.
Yeah.
So
and that's very important too, is the more overweight you are, the less fat you need in the diet. The body has all this fat ready to use.
Yes.
As you lose weight and get closer to your goal, your fat in your diet's going to go up.
That dude adding a bunch of fat that was really lean, he used that for his energy because he doesn't have it for his body.
So his body's switching from using some off the body to basically all from the diet at that point because he's so lean and active.
And this is another reason why it's so hard to do the comparison with people who are not like you. It's like, if you are trying to base your diet around what somebody in their 20s is doing and you're in your 50s, like that's not, and they have no diet history like you have, those things are maybe not going to work for you.
Exactly. I mean, the perfect example, Dr. Chaffee, he's huge, he's ripped, about 6 foot tall, or maybe more. And me, if I ate what he ate, I would put on weight like crazy. I'm not active enough. I'm not big enough. I don't have much lean mass.
So I was a midget compared to everybody on that Carnivore TV show, like Kelly Hogan, everybody, Bella. They're all
so tall. I know. I'm tiny too.
I'm doing like this, and so most people don't know. I was twice my size, and weight loss was very, very difficult. I am very, very short, and calories were a big factor for me. But when you have another foot on your body, you get to eat a lot more. Let's just put that that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, that's right. I mean, height is in their favor. Yeah.
Exactly. So I want to touch on this and maybe just go a little bit deeper into
lipedema.
What you have done specifically for.
Were you diagnosed and maybe like a definition of lipedema?
So I was diagnosed. There are some specialists you can go to and you can look up online at a great website is the Lipedema Project. I think it's .net. And they've got a quiz, like a Do I Have Lipedema quiz, right? That's a good place to start at the Lipedema Project. There you can find resources to find a doctor who can get you diagnosed. Typically, lipedema comes with some pain. Things like having a cat on your lap would be like excruciating pain for me to have a cat walk across my lap. Now it's gotten better with yeah, see, like the thought of that little those paws.
Sorry, Bella.
So typically women who have the pain that comes with lipedema will know that they've got something wrong with them. But typically doctors, general practitioners aren't aware of lipedema, and they'll point to other things, maybe like fibromyalgia or like some other, unknown symptoms. And they'll say, well, just lose weight and you'll feel better. But losing the weight with lipedema is complex. So I was diagnosed. Things that I have been doing to help with lipedema, really, for me, it's just switching to higher protein cuts because, like you said, it's carnivore. There's no carbohydrates involved. recommendations to lower carbohydrates and eat an anti-inflammatory diet for lipedema are out there. And so carnivore, checks the boxes for that. But I do it in a way that's lower energy, enough that I can, have the energy that I need to go work out, live life, but not so much that I'm like, sleepy after meals and I'm not gaining body fat doing it. So
Someone asked about sodium. I'm guessing you do electrolytes. They were just trying to be a know-it-all and say that you need more sodium.
Yeah, no, I don't need more sodium. I have sodium in my coffee every morning. I know you're not a fan of coffee, Maria, but it's okay. I salt my meats. I use salts all the time. I spice my foods. I don't need more sodium. My sodium levels are fine. I get lab work done regularly. It's not a salt issue.
I just wanted to address that. To
them.
You know what's funny about the coffee? All these carnivore police that'll get on your case about the slice of tomato.
They drink coffee.
They drink coffee. So, it's kind of silly.
I want to address.
But fat gives you fullness in taste. Protein only feels so odd.
I want to address this.
Yeah.
Because protein, you might have like, you might need more protease, like a digestive enzyme.
Yeah.
But so everybody has heard of Ozempic and these GLP-1 signaling drugs. They call them peptides, but they inject themselves. They feel full. They don't want to eat, things like that. You know what does that naturally? Protein does. Protein has it signals the GLP-1 in your stomach that you're full and that you're satisfied. So
and what I want to put on it to this person is you can't compare gram for gram. You have to compare calorie for calorie because over twice as many calories in fat as protein. So if you just switch out 10 grams of fat for 10 grams of protein, you're not going to feel as much satiety. But if you switch out 10 grams for 25 or 30 grams of protein, which will effectively be the same amount, you're going to feel a lot more satiety. Protein by itself is very satiating. And in fact, we on protein sparing days where people are eating, maybe 20, 30 grams of fat and like 120 grams of protein, which is only like 750 calories or something. They're like, I can't eat all the food. I'm full.
I had a plate and we took a picture. It was a huge plate of sashimi. It was ahi tuna, all sashimi, huge plate. And then 2 tablespoons of butter for comparison and calories. That's going to fill your belly. This is not going to.
Absolutely. I mean, I just tell you which one I would pick. There's the volume of food that I like to eat is so much more accessible to me as a high protein eater. Exactly. I like to sit down to a full meal. I don't want to have to portion out 4 ounces of ribeye and 2 pats of butter and then be done. That to me is sad. And that's going to have yes, of course.
I lived off of that. I can eat a whole loaf because someone's like, Maria, I can't make your protein sparing cinnamon rolls or bread because I'll eat all of it. I'm like, it's like 200 calories. Go for it.
Right.
I like the volume. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. And then some people will say, "Oh, volume eating, you're just a food addict. You're just switching it out with carnivore foods." And it's like, no. I just, I like a regular size meal. And if you are 6'2", you get to eat a regular size meal. I like to eat a regular size meal too, but I'm 5'2".
Exactly.
I want to thank Karen for chiming in. Karen Miles, you've been a huge pioneer in this space. I appreciate you watching and chiming in. So thank you.
We love Karen. Hi, Karen.
We love Karen.
She's my favorite.
I know.
That's awesome. So, what else do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I'm glad that we touched on testosterone. I know some people are asking if it was a cream or a pellet.
Oh, I do the pellet. But I think you can do either, talk to your doctor about that and see which one's going to work for you best.
I'm on the cream. So
yeah. Whatever works
for me.
You.
I wanted to go slow and see how it was going to affect me. Because I was having a hard time building muscle and stuff like that. And it's changed a lot. So I'm just glad that we're back to talking about women in, perimenopause. I even love that some of the doctors in this community talk about how you should think about hormone replacement before you're in menopause because it's starting to go lower in your 30s. Yeah. You're not optimal. And we were never supposed to live this long. So living over half your life in this postmenopausal time, all of these terrible side effects that you do not have to live with, that men don't have to live with, You don't have to do that anymore. And the risk of breast cancer and all that, those studies were skewed. I mean, but always talk to your doctor to find out if you're a good candidate. But,
Right.
you know, when it comes to like most women die of heart disease. Why does that happen? Well, your blood vessels are no longer flexible. Like estrogen makes them, lack of estrogen makes them stiff. You don't have the bone mass anymore because the hormones made it for you. And I don't know. I just like
That's
that we
right.
talk about it now.
I think it's really important. And I think, nobody's getting out of this without aging. Like it's going to happen, So it is, like you said, it's better to get on top of it, get your levels checked, see what your baseline is, so that when things start heading in a weird direction, you can say, now I understand. This is why I'm having these symptoms. Like if you were to look at my progesterone levels when I went in just for testosterone, my progesterone levels were, fine. They were fine. But she said, but like, how's your sleep? You ever wake up like sweaty? And I was like, oh yeah, I wake up sweaty all the time. And she's like, well, it's because you need progesterone, And I was like, oh, as soon as I started on some progesterone, that went away. You don't have to deal with that perimenopause stuff. You just don't have to deal with that.
That lack of sleep alone is going to affect your diet, your moods, your weight loss success or not. Like a whole bunch that people don't. You could be eating the perfect diet and still gain weight if you're sleeping only 4 hours a night, and having to get up 100 times to urinate. That's low estrogen and progesterone. Like you can address these things so you don't have to live this. You don't have to just deal with them anymore.
Right. It's great and it's safe, and I highly recommend everyone sort of checking it out. Things like sleep, things like stress. I talk about these frequently because they're the things that people miss. They think that diet's gonna solve everything, and we frequently talk about food, but those things are so important. Like when you're stressed out, like you said, when you get low sleep, you're going to want to eat more because you're stressed out and you may not be making great decisions. And then you say things like, oh, I fell off the wagon. I don't know exactly what happened. But it's like, well, check your sleep, like check your stress.
Yeah. And not just, you mentioned other things like mold. We have a dear friend, our assistant, she was having all of these issues. And in the end, she replaced the carpet just because they needed to be replaced. And all of her symptoms went away. It turned out it was all mold,
Mold in the carpet.
But a lot of times people will be like, well, Craig, are you really a carnivore? Because you shouldn't have these symptoms anymore. It's like, hold on, people, because his autoimmune issue came from Lyme disease, which is from a tick. Mm-hmm. It wasn't from an inflammatory diet. And
so, I mean, the trigger for your symptoms is a very important thing to address, whether it's a food trigger, which a lot of our clients, we see it all the time. They fix the diet and their symptoms go away. Everything, including some people, ankylosing spondylitis. Other people whose trigger was something like Lyme disease or mold. Until you address the Lyme disease and the mold, you're not going to see any changes on the other with diet. Diet's going to only take you so far. You can see a lot of improvements like I do. You see, reduced pain and all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to fix the Lyme with a diet. Or the mold with a diet. So you got to look at other things too. You can't just carnivore harder.
That's right. I mean, a carnivore is not this panacea. It's not going to fix everything. I think it's a great way to eat. I think it's the best way to eat, and do it flexibly. Do it to the point where you can, like you've got those levels in your carnivore book. Do it, how it can be sustainable for you. But it's not going to fix like a mold issue. Yeah, no, it's just not going to take care of it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is compliance. So what you can, stick to is what you want to do.
That's important. Yeah.
So if you are menopausal, just search for, a doctor that is, into bioidenticals in your area. Like even on our tiny island, I didn't like the one I went to, so I found a new woman doctor. She's amazing. But we do have an online doctor that can diagnose you if you are interested, or just see what you're low in. They'll do your tests and stuff. And that's the thing. If you have daughters, if you have granddaughters, nieces, whatever, tell them in their 20s when they're feeling their greatest to get their hormones tested. Because Linda, your levels and my levels, they're not the same.
Right.
So if you don't, I didn't know what my levels were when I was younger. So to give me the proper dose now, it's kind of a guess. unless you were previously tested when you were feeling your best. So tell your younger ones to get tested.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and because the ranges that they show you, like they'll say things like, well, you're in range, so you're fine.
So they do that to postmenopausal women. So they'll say, oh, your progesterone's normal.
That's
it's
right.
normal for someone that's not making progesterone anymore.
Yeah. Right.
So that's going to make you have poor sleep, urinate a lot, like all these things. So that's not what you want. You want the normal level for like a 20-year-old.
Yeah. And I will say, when you go look for a doctor to help you, like, just do the due diligence and find that like biofunctional like doctor. I tried to go through like a standard OBGYN who was this supposed hormone specialist who told me like, oh, you don't have to worry about progesterone because you're not trying to get pregnant. And I was like, wow, that's your answer to this. Like, she was like, no, we never do that, because if you're not trying to get pregnant, then you don't need progesterone ever. So that was the last
estrogen is a problem. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that this went into carnivore, to hormones, to all the things. But thank you, Linda. We don't want to take up any more time on a Saturday.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being on. Thank you for having me.
No, you've been your blessing. So yeah, your way of supporting us is being here and spending the time. So thank you. If you do need any books for giveaways or whatever on your Instagram, I'm your girl. I'll give you whatever you need.
Thank you. I might take you up on that offer. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all you do, all you share. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
You're awesome. Have a great day. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Share with your friends.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.